Yes, we are live.
Yeah,
Apparently, the
nice.
timer went down and then I did not click the button. I've had it once with like a famous guest on. We thought we were live for 5 minutes until my friend sent me a message. Where's your stream? And then it's just one button. Make it
One
auto.
thing though, I have YouTube opened on the stream and nothing is happening.
No, but there's a
Just so
30-second delay. There's a delay. All
Okay,
right. We just
right.
went right in live while we were chatting about things. This is how we do it at this stream. This is vibes, chill. We'll learn something together. So today we are here with the Hygraph stream with Niki, and he will tell you his real name in a sec because I just cannot pronounce. And turns out I can also not spell. If you look at the social post about this, it's wrong. My bad.
True,
Anyways,
true.
we will be talking about how you can get data from other systems into Hygraph because we get tons of questions about this in our community. Like, hey, I have this older system now. I want it in the new one, and then do I have to do everything in the UI or my code? What can I do? So we'll discuss that today. And so, Nikki, take it away. First, what's your proper name? How do you pronounce it? Where are you from? What do you do? All the things.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, you never had problems pronouncing it. It's just how you type it, but that's fine. So, hi,
Exactly.
my name is Nikolai, Nikki, Nico, whatever you want to use, it's absolutely fine. I'm used to any variation of it, so feel free to improvise. Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm a solutions engineer at Hygraph. My job is basically to show customers our product and make them see the value in it. Meaning, I work in pre-sales mostly. I've been a developer for the majority of my career. I honestly haven't really written production ready code in a while, and you're gonna see that today. So don't be too judgmental. It's just to make things work and see how it actually can happen. But
So
yeah,
are you
to
like Nicholas, like Alexei is saying? That's like the French version of our Nikki, isn't it?
that's actually a very fun internal joke because this is
Oh
how our
boy.
head of product is calling me for some reason. But again, I don't judge. I'm just gonna let it slide because I
On the
use any
stream, you can say
variation of the
whatever you
name.
want, man. We're good.
True, true. We're live and it's recorded, so
Exactly.
it's on the internet. It will never be deleted. The
Nope.
magic.
Exactly.
True.
Anyways,
Cool. So we're here to talk about how you can migrate to Hygraph, right? And as Tim said, this is something that we always hear when we start talking to a potential customer. Like they're coming from a monolithic system or another headless system. Like, how do I move our data into Hygraph? How does that work? Do I have to start everything from scratch? Do I have to type it in manually? Can I build a schema via code? Stuff like that. And
yeah.
it's also always a very heavy topic to discuss because it will vary, right? You come from a system, you have your own things built there. If you've been there for a while, even if you're using a monolithic system that usually have you know predefined structures, down the road you add customizations, you add new content types, and so on and so on, and all of those can be different across different customers. So it means you still have the challenge ahead of you to customize everything that you're going to be importing
Yeah.
to fit
Exactly.
your new narrative. So this is what
So
we're going to go through
before we
today.
go in, what is your worst experience with looking at like an older legacy system that you had to import data from?
Ooh, that's a very tough question to answer, but let me think. I'm gonna say, and this actually is not related to Hygraph at all, but it was back in the day, back in my developer days, we needed to build a system for, it was a scoring system for gymnastics, and we needed to import the data from an older database,
Yeah.
and it was a PostgreSQL, and we needed to import that in a Microsoft SQL server. And I have to say, even with the tooling that Microsoft provides, which is excellent, by the way, it still took a tremendous amount of time to actually do it. And it was mind blowingly bad.
Oh boy.
But yeah.
Actually, mine was, I have similar ones in the past, but the most recent one was when you and I were on a prospect call and they were showing us their CMS.
We don't talk about that. Come
I
on.
didn't say which prospect, I didn't say which CMS, but it was mind boggling. Okay,
It was.
I'll leave it at that. And I want to just quickly say hi to Jamie, who is here.
Oh,
He is old school high graph or graph CMS. I don't know.
Graph CMS. Hey, Jamie, I actually removed your name from the thing that we're going to import today. I should have left it.
Oh no, is that code that he also worked on that we're going to show today?
Well, he was a part of the initial demo when I initially
Oh no,
wrote
maybe
that
Jamie
code,
has to
which was
come on the
2 years
stream
ago.
then. Should we
If
have him
he's up
come
for
on the
it,
stream and
oh, if
then
he's up
reply to
for
what
it,
he's
I'll be happy
saying?
to have him.
Okay, he'll post something in the comments, and if he does, I'll send him a DM.
Perfect.
If not, we're good.
Cool.
So
All right.
you kick it off, and I'll see what Jamie has to say on all this.
Perfect.
You want your stuff on the screen, perhaps?
Probably.
There we go.
There we go. Cool. So let me switch to my presentation so we can actually kick this off. Right. So as I said, we're going to talk about how you can migrate content to Hygraph. And there are several distinct steps that we found out that you need to follow, and we're going to go through them today. For some of them, we actually have a live demo, so that's going to be interesting. The first thing you need to do is kind of know where you're coming from. You need to examine your current system and get an idea of what the data format you're keeping your information in and how you can migrate that to Hygraph, which is where creating the schema in Hygraph comes in. This is where you're going to examine our content types, how they relate to one another, and so on and so on. We're gonna see that in a bit. Then is how you actually plan to execute that. This includes writing the scripts for the migration, having the priorities set straight in terms of what goes first, and so on. And then finally, and this is probably the most important part, is how do you execute the whole thing? So we're going to see that today as well.
So you say we have to think before we do?
Normally, I would suggest yes. But speaking from experience, it's not always the case. Even I don't do it
Yeah.
every
There you
single
go.
time. I mean, just saying, I built this today.
How about that?
Yeah, you can guess how many hours I spent thinking about it.
I remember told you, hey, do you have this thing still? I said, yeah, but it's broken. Yeah, we were live streaming tomorrow. I'll fix it. But we're living on the edge, right? We're developers. This is the way.
There was
But
that
let's
saying,
just
YOLO.
act like we do. No, act like we say, not as we do. Is that the one?
Exactly. Do as I say, not as I do.
There we go. Okay, let's do this.
Perfect. So, where do you start? Easy. You start with examining what you currently have. You don't even have to think where you're going to. You need to have an idea of what you currently have. So, where are you migrating from? There are pretty much 3 distinct options that we see. And the first one is the classic CMS. You can think of that as the monoliths out there. That can be WordPress, Umbraco, Sitecore, stuff like that, even though Sitecore already has a headless offering, but we don't talk about that.
Let's call it hybrid.
Let's go with hybrid. That's fine. So what are the challenges when you are migrating from a classic CMS? There are several things that you have to keep in mind. And it's basically your content schema is not necessarily optimal. It's optimized for that particular CMS style. So there might be some things that you might need to reconsider. There are some hidden dependencies, 9 out of 10 cases that you don't even know about. So it will be something that you'll need to examine. The export formats might be weird, so you might need to translate that somehow. And then the API standards might be even non-existent. Like Jamie wrote about the XML thing. If you have XML, you're a lucky guy. I've seen stuff that will.
Then you can do
horrible.
XSLT, and then you can add CSS so that classic CMS title is in the center, because my front end eyes are crying right now. I'm sorry, dude.
I probably should. I don't know why it isn't, but yeah.
Let's not touch that now. We're fine.
Again,
I'll live
I
through the
did
pain.
this today. I did this today. Come on. All right. Second option, you're migrating from a different headless CMS. This is our favorite use case because it's the easiest one. Why is that easy? Well, you have a very high chance that the schema will actually be very compatible to us, because pretty much all the headless systems out there currently have relatively the same way of defining the content structure. There are some caveats here and there, but yeah, for the most part, you're pretty much all set with minor tweaks. One of the things that you should be careful about in that case is whether you're using some proprietary features. That might be native extensions to that particular platform. It might be a particular integration that you've built, and you're depending on that. You need to check how that will translate and think about the future as well. Again, same considerations. Can you export the data, and what are the API standards? That's always something that you need to think about. And then the final case is where things get funky. This is where you have something very custom built that has evolved through time, and it's basically homegrown and it doesn't conform to any standards. Now, in
Which
that
means every
case,
developer did that once, right?
exactly. I have 3 of those behind my
I
back. So,
certainly did. Even
right.
recently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, in some cases, you don't really need a run of the mill CMS, right? You can go get away with something custom. But when we're talking about enterprise features, bigger projects, this, as much as it's comfortable in the beginning, once it grows, you get in a world of hurt when you want to move away from it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're not going to even mention that today because it's a very custom use case and we can spend an entire other session talking about that. But yeah, that's the third and final option that we see. Cool. So where do you go from here? Once you know what your content structure is, you need to start thinking about how is that going to translate into Hygraph? What are the structural elements? How do you need to move that there so it still works? Can you potentially optimize something? Like if you have a one-way relation somewhere, which
Mhm.
is, by the way, foreshadowing, that's exactly what we're going to do today. If you have a one-way relation somewhere, does it make sense to make it a two-way relation? Maybe it does. And also, how are you going to move the assets? Are you still going to keep your current asset manager or are you going to move to another one? Those are all things that are very important, even though they don't really require action at this point of the process. And then the final, and this is a very important thing, is how you can get that information out of the current system. Is it going to be via an API? Can you export it in a JSON or CSV format? How will that work? This will basically dictate how you're going to build the scripts to move to Hygraph.
Yeah, and we're not probably not going to focus on that today. We're just going to start with something we have.
We are essentially going to assume that this part has already been done, and
Yeah.
we're going to work with the end product from that.
Yeah, exactly. So we will have some CSV file. But
Exactly.
if someone else might do this, they might in their code first query their other CMS, maybe Contentful or something like that. Sorry, I didn't want to name drop that, but here you go. And then you get all that data through their SDK, have it in memory, and then push it into Hygraph, right? You can do that in one file, unless it's like something super complex and you do it in way more. It's like depends on the size.
Yeah, you're right. I honestly don't like the idea of doing that in the same file because it's always prone to errors. And at
Yeah, sure.
least for me, like the developer in me tells me that I need to split my work in chunks. So I know where if something fails, I know that this chunk is the problem. So I need to, go and fix that.
Exactly.
Where if I put everything in the same place, you get in a kind of a tricky situation where you need to determine where exactly it breaks, and it's not great.
So that means I'm more of a hacker than a developer nowadays. But
We're all hackers at this point.
works. That's true though.
Cool. All right. Now, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to move a blog post website from an unnamed system that Tim might have dropped in just now to Hygraph. And the structure is basically we have a blog post that has a title, content, and an author. And we have the author model that has a name and a portfolio link. And they're connected by a reference from the blog post to the author. Right? This is our
Cool.
current situation. You have a question?
No, I'm
Oh,
assuming that. So this is more of an observation. This is a simple approach. This is fine. But what I would love to do is click on the author's name and see the blog posts. And right now, I don't think we can do that unless it's some magic. We do some magic in code.
not easily. And this is exactly what I mentioned a second ago. Like if when you see what you currently have in your system, you might start thinking about optimizations.
Yeah,
Because even
exactly.
with the current setup, you can potentially still build that somehow on the front end. So when you click on the author, you can get all of their blog posts.
Oh yeah, we
But
just
that
query all
means
the blog posts and all the authors and then
and
do a
filter by
filter.
the author.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a little
which
silly, but we could do it.
exactly, it's not optimal. It's much easier if you actually build the other way around and you have a relation from the author to the blog post as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Cool. So this is where we go to creating a new schema. And I'm gonna speed through this, and then we can jump into the actual
Yeah,
thing.
let's show some code on the screen soon.
Yeah. So first thing is you need to design the structure, and there are two ways, well, several ways to think about it. The first one is whether you're going to use the UI to build the schema, or you're going to go with code first. What's the difference? The difference is how you want to evolve that schema down the road, whether you want to replicate that project down the line, whether you want to have traceability of the changes that had happened incrementally. And you can think of this as the classic code first approach, where you have different migrations that you can then execute against a blank project. So you have traceability of everything.
This is, sorry to interrupt here. You said the words code first, and I didn't expect you to say that. But I come from the Sidecore world where code first is like a thing. And you just gave me shudders down my spine when you said code first, based on the experiences I have. Because we all want to do code first, but then when you start, it's so hard to do. Sorry, this is one of those things like that you hear after like 6 years, and you're like, oh crap.
I have so many horror stories coming from code first approaches that they're mind-blowingly horrific, I'd say.
Also, I can imagine doing a data import like this, code first, totally cool. Maintaining your schemas and models in code, cool. But doing everything code first, including 4 content editors that then have to make new models and stuff in code, no.
The cool thing about code first is that it's great to start with, but then nobody wants to deal with the actual end product that comes from that code first approach.
Yes.
The cool thing about Hygraph is that even if you go with the UI, essentially what you're going to be doing there will translate to the exact same thing if you do it code first. Every single thing that you do from the UI, you are doing from the code first approach. So we're actually going to show both of those today, so you can see what the difference is. So with that, since we already know what we're building, essentially, we have that current structure, and we essentially want to kind of change it to have a two-way reference, and we're going to add the blog post collection in the author. Let's go and see that in action. So switching to the project that we're going to use. Essentially, this is a blank project that we're going to use for data import. The schema is empty, right? We have just the system models here, and we need to create that author and that blog post. So first, I'm going to do that in the UI so we can see how that looks like. And then I'm going to show you what it means if we do it via code. So we're going to start with adding an author. Add that model. We're going to add their name. Use that as a title field, and we're going to make it unique.
And we do that so we can query the where in GraphQL.
Exactly.
I learned that recently from our PM guys. Forgot.
Yeah. I'm going to add their portfolio link, and we're pretty much done with the author.
Okay, so this is not the two-way binding yet, right?
Not yet. We need the other model first. So we're going to build we're going to build the blog post. I'm going to add that. Title for it. Again, use this title field. Now, the content of the blog post, I'm just going to keep us marked down for simplicity reasons. You can have that as rich text, which will give you a lot more customization options. But for this particular demo, let's keep it simple. Let's go with Markdown. We're going to name this content. Add that. And this is where we're actually going to make the connection. And this is where Hygraph is extremely powerful. So we're just going to go down here, and we're going to add a reference. And maybe I should zoom in a bit. We're going to add a reference from the blog post to the author. We're going to make that a two-way reference, and we're going to allow multiple blog posts per single author, right? This is the
just a quick interruption. Brian was almost ready to start bitching on the fact that we didn't, for the rich text, that we used Markdown.
So
we'll
Brian,
do a whole stream on it.
Exactly. We'll make another stream specifically for the rich text editor.
And then Brian can come and talk about why that is important. All right.
Yes. Yes. Cool. So we build a connection from the blog post to the author. And the cool thing that just happened, because this is the original setup, right? We have the blog post with those fields. But since it's a two-way reference, if we go to the author, we're going to have the collection of blog posts. So we don't have to go through that mental gymnastic of querying the blog post, filtering by author, and so on and so on. Cool. So this is how easy it is to make it from the UI, right? Building the schema, I did it in 2 minutes, give or take.
That was
Now,
relatively fast.
Pretty much the same thing you can run via code, and it's done via our management SDK. And now we have the basis for that. We have the creation of the author already done in this cool project, and I hope it's visible well on the screen.
Yeah, it looks all right. There's post in the chat if anyone likes this more zoomed in, but I can see it well, and my screen is like smaller, so we're good, I think.
Okay, perfect, cool. So the current state of things is we're basically using our management API SDK, sorry, in here, which maybe I should scroll in a bit. There. This is the one that you're going to use when you start building the schema via code. And we pretty much support the whole creation process from here. Like we're creating our author model. Why are those pop-ups? There we go. We're creating our author model. We're creating the name field. We're creating the portfolio link field. This is pretty much the basis of everything that we're going to do.
Yeah.
Now, for this to be a bit more interactive, we're going to build it runtime. So I'm just going to open my cheat sheet. And we're going to start putting stuff here. So the first thing we're seeing in here is that there are some stuff that we don't really need. Like the name is made multi-line, which we don't need. So we're going to add. There we go. We need to make the name unique. So we're going to say is unique.
And so is this typed? Will it just give you all that stuff?
It is, yes.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, most of it, at least, it's typed. And we need to make this.
Oh, the title field. Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Yes, exactly. Cool. The portfolio link seems to be fine. And then this is pretty much it for the author. What we need to do now is create the blog post. And this is where I'm going to start copy and pasting so we can speed through this. So
just a quick question before we go into this. So right now, this client.createSimple field is basically just a global function. It's not in context.
Correct.
So how does it know which schema it's adding this to?
This is a very good question, and it's basically your configuration for the client, right? When you're creating the client that comes from the SDK, you need to supply the authentication token for that particular project and the endpoint that you're using. And in this case, I'm getting them from my .env file.
Yeah,
so I have
exactly.
them in here.
Yeah, you just put them in there, sure.
Exactly.
But then you make the author, right? How does the client, when you add a simple field, know it has to add it to the author model?
That's a very good point. So once you specify the author, everything basically works on the API IDs.
You link it together with IDs.
Correct. So once we have, how can I stop those pop-ups?
Yeah, there it is.
So once we have the API ID for the author, come on, you basically reference that same thing here, and it knows that that name is going to go there.
Cool. That's easier than chaining this stuff together.
Yeah.
With
well, to be fair, the initial version,
like that, right?
Yes, the initial version of this was actually the chain way of doing things, and it was kind of a nightmare if you had something a bit more complex.
Yeah, exactly. This gives you a lot more flexibility.
Exactly. Cool.
Okay, clear. Thanks.
Let's build the blog post model. So,
well, it's already there, so I'm excited to see if it throws an error or not.
It will. We need to clean the schema first, but I was keeping that as.
Oh, sorry. Let us see an error, please. Let's see the error.
We'll see an error. Let's see the error. Cool. So this pretty much creates the model for the blog post. We need to make the title for that, which is essentially the same thing we did for the author. I'm just going to copy and paste that. Again, is title? Yes. Is it a string field?
Almost like copy this and change the model API ID, right?
Precisely, which is pretty much what I did.
I'm literally learning the SDK while he's showing this stuff. Niki is showing this stuff. So hence me asking these questions.
So you can do the next live alone.
Oh, sure. It's a lot less fun, but yes, sure.
True. So Here is something that's interesting, and we recently stumbled upon this. When you're creating a string field, we have several different options for it, right? If we take a look at the schema, the string type has a single line, multi-line, markdown, or a slug type.
Yeah.
Now, these essentially down below are all strings, right? The difference is how they are visualized in the content editing section. So if you go to
Mhm.
blog post and create a new one, this is a string, this is also a string, but since this is rendered as markdown, you have that cool, kind of rich text editor
Yeah, exactly.
field. Brian, please don't kill me. But yeah, so in the configuration of the schema via code, you need to somehow configure this in the code. So the way we do that is by providing two separate renderers. One is for the form, meaning inside here. And let me just type in something so we have an entry. And the other renderer is actually in the content table, which is here.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Now,
Good to know.
this is where my gripe with the SDK comes into play.
Here we go.
These things should be an enumeration, but unfortunately they're not. So you
That
need
was
to
my
type
next
this
question.
down.
Can I not just
Yes,
import these things from the SDK and have them typed and everything?
I'm currently pretty much pushing the dev team
We
to
have
do that.
Alexei in the stream.
He's here. Oh,
I
let's
think
see.
he's here.
I'm so happy you're here. So this needs
Okay.
to be an enum. Please make it.
All
Cool.
right. Let's
So
can we run it yet?
one more field and we will. So we pretty much currently have the blog post with the title and the content field.
Yeah.
This is where the most important field comes into play, and this is the relation field. And I'm actually going to type this out because it's interesting.
We
We're going to
have
go with
Alexei saying
client.
that he thought it was an enum already.
Well, there you go. It's not.
It's
We need to
not,
make it an enum.
apparently. Or maybe it's
Yeah.
just not exported through the export of the SDK itself. Maybe they exist internally.
They might actually exist. Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe
We
it's
need to
just
check
the
this.
export.
It could be. Cool. Let's create that relation. So we're
Exactly.
going to make
Oh, yeah,
a
exactly. This I've not seen before. Cool.
There we go. So now we're going to do that. We need to create a relational field, which is different than the simple field thingy. So we're going to start with that. I haven't called it for real in a long time. Please bear with me. We need to specify the API ID for this. So we're going to go with this is the relation from the blog post to the author.
Okay.
We're going to add, what was it? Display name. Wait, this is not GraphQL, Niki. We're going to add display name, which is going to be author, capital A. There we go. And then we need to specify what type of a relationship this will be. So we need to add type. This is where this, fortunately, is an enum. So obviously
Hey,
we
there
can
we
do
go.
it. There we go. So it's going to be a relation type field. There we go. And now this is where it gets interesting on how you create two-way relations. I can leave it as is, basically, and it will create a relation to the author. But if we wanted to make it two-way relation, we can configure a reverse field, right? And in here, we can specify the API ID of the other model, which is going to be, the API ID of the field in the other model, which is going to
It's
be
the
blog
blog post
posts.
then. Okay.
Yep. Again, this is not GraphQL. I need the commas. Are those pop-ups still there?
Yeah, this is just the autocomplete, I guess. In
Display name, we need the posts. There we go, comma. That. And what else? Where is this going to go? Model API ID. This is going to go in the author. Specify that. And this is where you control the cardinality of the connection, meaning if this is going to be a one-to-many, many-to-one, and so on. And you can say is list. And if you say true, that means that there are going to be multiple references in the reverse field, meaning the blog posts.
okay.
So this is important.
Spicy question. Outside of the TypeScript of this, where's this documented?
Alexi, are you here?
So I'm going to be sending people with a question to this live stream recording then.
No. That we actually have it documented.
Cool.
It is in the docs, and there might be stuff missing here and there, which we try to complete every single day. But I think everything that I'm showing is currently documented quite well.
Okay. I'm going to look for that while you continue, and I'll post it in the
Please
chat.
do. Please do.
And just so everyone knows, I asked this question because I knew documentation is hard, but we have some amazing people working on that and lots to come. Like Brian is saying, how about this? Lots of docs to come and new things, because this is stuff that we see so often.
True. Now, one thing we forgot to do is to specify for which model we're creating that relational field. So we need to add the model ID here, which is blog post. There we go. With that, I think we're ready to run that whole migration. So
for the folks who want to go to the API reference, I just put it on the screen.
Did you? Perfect. That's it. And you can post it in the chat. So it's
I just did.
There we go. Cool. So let's run this and see what happens. And your prediction, Tim, is?
It's going to fail because you just made one.
Exactly.
Quick question, though. That run function, where did you get that from?
I copy-pasted that.
Yeah, but is it like an NPM package or something?
It's coming from the client, essentially.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah. So basically, you can run, in this case, it's a migration. When we go to the actual data,
the data insert.
Data moving part is going to be mutations. Yeah.
Okay, so this is just, so the run comes from our client. That's awesome.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Cool. So we're just going to run this file and see what happens. Prediction is it's going to fail, right? Should.
Exactly.
And there we go. We have an error.
It's already existing.
Both, exactly. Yeah. Both of those models are already there. So what are we going to do? We're going to delete those. And by the way, you'll get...
That is super cool. That you just saw that.
Yeah, you'll get an error in the UI as well.
That is super cool.
Right, so let's delete that. Let's delete the blog posts. There we go. Let me clear those. And now, something that I didn't mention when we started building the schema through the UI is that it's always a good idea to have a backup environment before you start this whole process. So you would go to project settings, go to environments, and you would clone this as a backup, especially if you already have some data structures there that you don't want to compromise. I'm just going to name this backup. I'm going to clone it with content, obviously. And while that's happening, actually, let's wait for it because...
Yeah, I have to be safe here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brian, we shouldn't live on the edge.
I'll just put this on the screen for a second. Yeah, we do live on the edge, but we're also praying to the demo gods right now. Here we go.
There we go. Perfect. Cool. So let's try that again. Let's run that same migration.
So when you run this and there's a result, can you zoom in a little bit on the console? Here we go. So we can actually see what happened. So we finished and it worked.
That's it. And if we go back to, here, go to the schema, ta-da!
There we go.
We have the author with the single line unique title, the same way we wanted to have that. The blog posts, multiple values.
Now it's a two-way reference. How about that?
Exactly.
That's a quick question. This multiple reference thing that you see there in the author one, that is because you use blog posts with an S in the end.
No,
right?
no.
Oh, that's not
because we did this.
Oh, the is list. You just told us.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Cool. Right. So now we have the schema, right? We have the structure in Hygraph. We're pretty much ready to start shaping the actual migration back. So as we said in the beginning, we're going to treat this as we did our homework. We exported all of the information from our other system, and we have that in some kind of a format right now. And the way we did it is we have a CSV file that's basically containing all of our posts. First, it has the name of the author, then it has their portfolio link, then it has the title of the specific blog post, then the content of that blog post.
So this
And now,
file was generated by someone who coded something and took
precisely.
some data out of a system, stored it in this. So we're
Exactly.
not doing that this stream.
No.
Okay.
We're going to assume that we've already done that. Now, one very important thing when you start about thinking moving the data is where you're going to start. And our suggestion is always to start with the most reusable models first. So in this case, if we look at the whole schema that we had, we're going to have one author authoring multiple blog posts, right? Which means that the author is going to be reused across multiple different blog posts. And it's reflected in this export, right? We have me authoring several posts, Tim authoring several posts. So if we go with just inserting those lines directly, that means we're going to have duplicates over the author model. Or we're actually not going to have duplicates because we marked the name as unique. We're going to get an
You would
error
just get an error
right away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So normally the way you would go about this is you would build a mutation. And the very cool thing about the platform is that you can play around with this from the API itself. So we can just go ahead and build a new mutation here with create blog post. So we're just going to create one, see what happens if we try to recreate it again. So basically, we're going to build a blog post with the my second blog post title. We're going to run this. Cool. We got the result. Let's see. We have Peter Thiel as an author. We have the blog post here. Perfect. That's fine. So what happens if I try to run this with my third blog post, my third content? And if I try to run this
with the same author,
no, we're going to get an error because the name of the author is...
so now the system tried to make another author with the same name, which is not possible because it's a unique field.
Correct.
All right.
Correct. So this is where we would switch things around, and we're not going to be creating blog posts, but we're actually going to be creating authors. And for each author, we're going to create their blog post.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But
so this is the thinking part that people need to do when they have a data model and
exactly.
say, hey, how do we put this in? Yeah.
Exactly. But then again, we're going to run into a very similar issue here. So if we go with create blog posts, and we're going to get that data field here. Let's start doing that. The title is going to be its first post.
Oh, you might want to do a backslash or double quotes.
Double quotes.
Here we go.
Title and content. How far along do you know lorem ipsum?
About here.
Let's go with this.
That's fine.
And
now you do author.
And now I'm just doing the same thing though. Like, come on, Niki. We should have started with the author, right?
Exactly. That was the point.
Content. Come on. All right. Let's do that again. Data.
So when we film videos together, this happens about 16 times. You're much better live, dude. You're like, wait.
Am I? We should just do this live then. All right.
Exactly.
Name.
Yep.
You return the favor here.
We can do it. Like, this is a mistake I don't mind because it feels like I'm part of Asterix and Obelix as the comic.
How many ways can you spell Google wrong? Cool. So
yeah, exactly. All right.
This is where it gets interesting. So I can now go ahead and basically add the blog posts, right? I can do that, and it will basically be either create or connect. Since we're importing, it's going to be a create mutation, and it's going to be pretty much the same thing. So we need to add a new blog post, which again, the formatting kind of eludes me here. So this is going to be Tim's first blog post. Content is going to be first post, right?
And this
Now,
should
if
work.
we run this, I'm missing something.
You might want to click on Prettify. Maybe that works.
Do I have Prettify?
Left up,
I
yeah.
have
Oh no, so if that doesn't work, it means there's something wrong.
Yeah, I have an error somewhere. What is not corresponding there? Oh, I need to close another curly bracket. There we go.
So we have a question in the chat. Let me just put that on. So after the benefits, there benefits to creating this inline versus creating all authors and then creating all blog posts?
There are, and it's pretty much in the simplification of the script. Now, there are actually benefits to both approaches depending on what you're building. If you have something extremely complex, I would do them separately, hands down. I would first import all the authors and then import all the blog posts, but then you run into another issue that you have to solve, and that's extracting and mapping the old IDs for the authors versus the new ones and mapping those to the
then you have to do
reference
a
from the blog
query in
post.
between to get the new
Yes.
authors, link these to the old authors, and then add that to your new query for the blog post. Holy crap, my brain just made a leap. But yeah, there we go.
Either that, or you can save the IDs as you import them on the client and basically have a lookup table locally. Either way, you're still going to have to do some kind of a lookup.
Yeah.
That being said, one very important step we're skipping today is importing assets, and this is where you would do them separately because they use an entirely different API to upload, right? So you would have to do that mapping anyways. So to answer Brian's question, there are benefits to doing it inline sometimes, but you can also do them separately, depending on what your use case is. Right. The Prettify thing didn't do a very good job, to be honest.
It did a worse job.
It actually uglified it. So let me
Yeah, Brian, the answer is, as always, it depends. Should we maybe make that the name of this stream series?
Please do. Can you? Right.
I'll make a blog, I'll make a podcast myself. Anyways, let's run this. Let's see if this works.
Yeah, let's run this. So first,
Yes.
okay, we created that author. Perfect. Which means if we go to content, we should have Tim as the author. There we go.
Yep.
And we have your Tim's first blog post. Now, let's go back and create a new blog post for you. So it's going to be Tim's second. Right? And here we're going to run into the exact same problem. If I run this,
exactly. Yeah,
value is not unique. Cool. So this is where the magic of Hygraph's API and SDK comes into play. You can use a different mutation called upsert.
So this is not something other CMSs offer often, right? This kind of stuff.
Not often. No. It's normally the way you would do that is with manual logic, and you would execute the, let's say, the background thing that this upsert does manually. But essentially what it boils down to is it has two options. Well, three. Well, two. If you have the model that you're inserting, it will update it. You're going to use this section. If you don't have it, then it will create it. So what we can do with this, and it's going to be pretty magical, is we can say if the author doesn't exist, we're going to add the name. It's important to spell it correctly because we're going to use that for the filter.
Oh boy.
Folio link.
I love that auto completion.
Portfolio. And this is where we can add the blog posts as well. And again, here we don't worry about connecting existing ones, so we're going to create a new one. Let's say title. Why is this formatting so bad? Lexi, you're here, right? Need better formatting tools. Title. Tim's second. Content. Lorem ipsum. There we go. Cool. I'm actually just going to copy and paste that for the update because we don't really have different logic there.
Okay, cool. So
There we
if it
go.
exists somehow and it figures that out based on some of these fields, it will update, and otherwise it will create. But it's all depending on the where clause, I imagine.
Exactly. And here we need to specify the name that we're going to be checking against. So in this case, we need Tim, and we need to spell it correctly. So we're going to go with Tim Bennix. There we go. And now, if we run this, we should get a
There it
result.
is.
So if we go to content, what's our expectation? We should have
Just
still
one
just
Tim
one
now.
Tim Bennix, but he should have 2 blog posts. Tim's
Yeah,
first,
nice.
Tim's second. Actually, let's prettify this because I'm kind of getting lost.
Yeah,
Okay,
so everybody always does that. That's why in our new interface
it's going to
that's
be
coming
done by
soon, it's
default.
going to be a lot more smooth.
Yes, cool. Did I just catch a bug?
Don't say, oh, huh? No, if you want to do this, this should be saved in your local storage until you come back next time. Or you have to really make your own view. But I think we found a bug online, like on the stream.
Interesting. Let's add a custom.
Now you make a custom view and then it will always sit.
It should have set in the default view as well. Interesting. All right, doesn't matter.
Nah, it's
let's
fine.
not spend too much time here. Authors. Let's just have it more user friendly. There we go. Cool. All right. Oh, we now know the basics, right? We're going to use an upsert thingy here, create embeddings, add all of the different things. That's perfect. How do we translate that to an automation way of doing things? Let's go back to our Visual Studio Code here. And instead of checking the create migration thing and the import data, we're going to go to our authors server. And since this is kind of a demo / the actual spike of the
Is this Express.js?
website, it is.
I have not used that in a long time.
Punish me, please. So let's actually start that. I actually believe this is one of Jamie's first spikes.
If Jamie is still here, you should be proud that we still use this.
Yeah, we still use this. It's the basis of this whole thing. Still runs. Cool. It's running on port 3000. Let's go and check it out.
So you just started a node server essentially that does HTTP through Express.js. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And what it does is basically lists our authors in.
Oh, it actually queries Hygraph also.
Yeah, it's actually live. Cool. So if I go and create a random author, which will essentially create a random name for them, I can go to our system, check the authors, and we have.
There it is.
That here.
That is so fancy.
Pretty cool. Cool. But what's interesting here is that we need to see how we can add our exports from our old system, which might or might not be contentful. We don't know. Tim kind of dropped it, but
it might be content stack. Who knows?
It might be. Who knows? Cool. So we need to examine how this thing works before I click it. So I'm not going to click it just yet.
By the way, maybe it's content AI.
Could it be?
Why am I wearing this hoodie at this moment? Nobody needs to know.
Come on. We're begging to get fired right now.
I'm living on the edge of work. All right, so let's run this thing.
Anyways.
Wait. So let's have a look first.
Yeah. So we need to examine what this thing is doing before I click it. And if I can't really highlight this, but if you take a look at the bottommost there on the screen, you're going to see that we are calling @CSV authors in our
that's
server.
the URL. Yes, of course.
Yes, exactly. So if we go here and look for that @CSV, there we go. It pretty much calls an importer, and if we go and examine what that does, is it calls import CSV, which pretty much reads that CSV file. It makes it a JSON, and then for every row in that JSON, it calls an import create job thing that's going to execute
Yeah, so this is a
asynchronously.
queue system.
Right.
And this is mainly there because if you're on the free version and you're going to just spam 1,000 things at the same time, it's going to crap out. That's not how
Exactly.
it's meant to be used. That's why we
No,
queue it.
you exactly. You can pretty much make them synchronous and execute the whole thing as a batch, but still,
Yeah.
let's roll with this. So in here, ooh, I probably should have updated this to say Hygraph.
Yeah, I saw some Graph CMS references before from your environment variables, but that's
Yeah. Okay.
fine.
If there's anyone new on this live stream, Graph CMS is the old name of Hygraph. To clarify
Exactly.
things. Cool. So what are we doing here? Well, essentially, we are creating a new GraphQL client, which now is not exactly that GraphQL client, that management SDK client that we saw in the migration thing. This, I think, is...
This is just an NPM package everybody can download.
Yeah, it's an NPM
I think
package
this
that
is
has
called
nothing to do with...
GraphQL request, isn't it? If you scroll up.
GraphQL client, actually. Yeah, no.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're right.
request. Yeah,
You're right.
exactly.
GraphQL request.
Yeah.
There we go.
So
So in
this just
here...
wraps how you would do a post with fancy
Exactly.
GraphQL queries. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. How are we with time? Okay, we should wrap it up.
Yeah,
So
we
in
have
here,
10 minutes. We should be fine.
yeah. So in here we have the basic create author, right? So this is pretty much creating the author with the name, with the portfolio link, and so on. Now what we need to do here is change this create mutation to the upsert thing that we just played around with.
Oh,
in
yeah,
the...
exactly.
Exactly. So
This stuff. Yes.
I can just copy and paste that and start changing the variables with the ones that we have there. But through the magic of being prepared and actually
The
doing this
magic of
today,
being prepared.
through the magic of being
That's our sales
prepared,
engineer for you, folks.
oh, well, you always need to be prepared. I can just copy and paste that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy the whole query. Or let's see where it ends here. There we go. And I'm just going to replace this whole thing. Which, again, through the magic of being prepared, voila, we have
There we go.
upsert author with all the necessary name for the author, portfolio link, title for the blog post, and content for the blog post. So now, actually, before executing that, I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to clean everything. Like I'm just going to delete all the authors and all the blog posts. So we have a clean system. There we go.
Nice.
And if we come back here, we are expecting to see 2 authors after this is done, Tim and me, each with 5 blog posts.
Yeah.
So let's come here, click the magic button. Author's important,
So
which is
not
kind of
firing
flying
the function.
because they're... Ooh, we have an error, people. Perfect. Why?
Let's zoom this in.
Value is not unique for the field name. Oh. Maybe if I save the file first.
Oh, that would have helped.
Maybe. All right.
Let's try that again.
Here, let's start the server again. And before we do that, let's see if we actually managed to import something. We did.
No,
Okay.
nothing happened. Oh, yeah, some stuff.
We imported the
same
authors.
name, of course. Yeah.
Cool. So it's running. Let's refresh
The fact that
this.
your file wasn't saved happens to me at least once a day when I'm coding.
So this is actually a very good example of why you need that backup environment, right? Because if a lot more things got imported and they got messed up with different already existing things that you have in the system,
Yeah,
it's going to
imagine
be
having
messy.
100,000 items of something that all need to connect somewhere.
Exactly. So in that
Yeah.
case, you could just roll back to the previous backup environment that you had and just start from there once you fix the script. So now that we fixed it, let's hit that again. Check Visual Studio. It should be trying to import them. It's a queue again.
And this is your queue, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Because
it
we're running
waits
on
a
the queue
second
here.
before it does the next one.
Yeah. So once that's done, our expectation is to see Tim and me here. We are. If we go to the system and we go to content, we have the 2 authors as expected. And if we go to blogs, we're going to see 5 for me.
Nice.
And 5 for Tim.
So they're all in draft mode. Is there a way in code to also publish them?
There is, and let me check if we could do that from here. No, but if we add a random author, I think I had it from here. Yeah, I have the
Oh,
publish
there's the
action. So
publish
if I
here.
hit
Cool.
that, yeah. And if we come to that particular
Oh,
author, you
okay,
can
cool.
see that
So
he's
there,
published.
can you show that code?
I can, and let's go to the author server. It should be publish author. It's basically a simple mutation. I can
Oh,
publish
that's very
author.
simple.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
cool.
it. Cool. That's pretty much the whole scenario. Several gotchas that I need to mention. First, you need the right permissions for the token that you're going to be using in here, right? That token. That is configured in the platform. And if we go to the project settings and the authentication tokens, you pretty much will need the correct permissions depending on what you're doing. So for this one particularly, because we are doing mutations, because we are publishing for the content, I pretty much enabled everything.
Yeah.
But since we're doing pretty much the same, no, since we're executing the schema creation from that same token, you need to make sure that the management API permissions for that are enabled. So basically, it would be create new fields, create new models, and stuff like that, right? All
So
of
for
that has
this
to be enabled.
stuff, I would kind of suggest for people to make a specific token just for importing and then just trash that after.
I agree. Yes,
Yeah.
like
That's how I
that's
did
a
it from my
one-time
side,
thing.
for sure. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, folks. More or less, I think
That is
this
more
was it.
or less it. Well, we got really far actually. These are all
We
the
did.
basics. I think the the hard bit from now on is looking at your current system and seeing how many connections you have to things and how big that system is. And if you also have legacy and if you just
Yeah.
how to get it out. So there's like a whiteboard session needed of what do we do when and if it's an upsort or an update or an insert. Once you
Yeah.
have that done, back up your environment and try. And then probably try a few times and set put back the backup all the time.
And
And
then call me.
yeah, sure, that we could do that. You mean you want to sell like a license or something? No, but the
Right.
interesting thing is, like, you could also do it in a few sessions, right? You could do the first one, and you like it. Okay, now I write new code to connect things up to the next one. Split it up. There's nothing against that, right? It doesn't have to be
That's
one.
actually very important, and it's one of the official suggestions that we have. Like, if you have a big system, do it in chunks. You don't have to do everything at once.
Yeah.
This is where Brian's question actually comes into play quite a lot,
Yeah,
because
planning over coding. And you know
that's it.
what's interesting here? I've done huge migration projects before while we were building a new system, and we're like, oh boy, we actually have to migrate 8 years of data from 300 websites into this new system that might be multi-tenant to 10 sites or something. And then that would take us like 6 months. And it was 5 months of planning and 1 month of trying the code. And then it was fine. But it's quite planning heavy because I can probably you can count on the fact that there's a dark corner of data somewhere that is not the same everywhere. The structure is not clear. So you
Yeah.
almost have more work in the conversion to something clean than actually putting it in Hygraph. We just give you all the tools that you need, essentially.
Yeah.
So if anything, anyone here from the community has any questions, you can ask them here. What you can also do is actually join us at the community if you're not there yet, or if you are, feel free to just put all these questions in. And if you feel like, hey, the general channel has like 6,000 people, I'm not going to ask my question there. You can just send us a DM, or you can actually go into our Getting Started channel where we kind of created a vibe that's a bit smaller, and you can just ask anything without having 6,000 people looking over your shoulders. And we're all in there, right? So we have done this stream and we will know this stuff. So we'll be in there. If you ask a question, we'll answer, hopefully. And so,
Yeah.
Nikki,
One question, Tim.
go. Sure.
How are we gonna send the actual code repository that we just created and
I think
the
the
slides?
easiest way is if you give me some links now and I put them as banners, and then later on in the description of this live stream, they'll be here. I'll also post them on our community. because
Cool.
we
So
have
let's do that later because the links I'll
yeah,
be
we'll do
gonna
it
give you
after
now
the
are
fact. It's easiest because
yeah.
we have a link to clone this repository in Hygraph. We have a repository in GitHub you can clone.
Yeah.
And we also have our slides because Niki also has an extended version of his slides that has like per slide, there's like all the steps, right? We make that a PDF and you can just get that. Because if
Yeah.
you have to tell your boss, we're going to need to do this migration, send them this deck. And they'll be like, oh, sure, let's go. That's what I'm hoping this will do. We are exactly at 5, at least CET my time. Is there anything left, Niki, that you wanted to give our audience?
Think on your feet and you're good to go.
Whoa. I was thinking he's going to say happy coding or something. In
No,
that
come
case,
on.
I'll say happy coding, and I'll see you all next week in next stream. And thank you, Niki, for all your hard work in the prep for this, in the
No
2 hours
worries.
you spent. But there you go. You can do a lot in these hours.
Come on. True.
All right, that's a compliment. Anyways, cheers, everyone. Take care.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.